All right, so in this video, we're going to look at the core types of objects that are kind of central to polars. And I've just got a little bit of pre-populated code right here, so I'm importing both pandas and polars. And then I am reading in that store cells data like was done in the data ingestion video for both pandas and polars. And I've got two objects, so cells data PD and cells data PL. All right. So one thing in pandas, so when we read in that store cells data, we get that cells data PD. So if we were looking at that, right, this is the object that is returned. So this is a pandas data frame. It has index labels and row labels. And we can see if I do the type, right, it is in fact a pandas core frame data frame, or pandas data frame. All right. If we look at cells data PL, right, one thing that we notice is we have column labels. We do not have that index though. So in polars, the data structure that is returned when we're doing this read does not have an index. So again, it's using that Apache Arrow columnar format, and it does not use an index. All right. But if we look at the type of that, all right, it's pretty much analogous to what we saw with pandas, right? So instead of it being a pandas data frame, it is going to be a polars data frame. And they have conveniently named the class exactly the same. So we've got kind of this camel casing, capital D and F in data frame. All right. So data frames are kind of, core objects that we would work with in both pandas and polars. All right. The other object type that we would see in both of them. So if we go to cells data PD, in that pandas basics playlist, we talked about how do we index data. And so if I wanted to grab a column, we could do it like this. So this will return a column of data. And if we notice, right, so if I just run cells data PD, right, when we got that data frame back, we had index labels, column labels. We've got this tabular kind of structure, and we have this alternating row color in the display. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. So alternating row colors. All right. So that was our data frame. And if we look when we describe a column, it looks a lot different. First off, it's kind of a, just a normal, almost, computer text font. We don't have these alternating, colors in that display, and it looks like we just have an index label if we think about index labels as corresponding to rows. All right, and this is a pretty good indicator that we're dealing with something that's not a data frame in pandas. In fact, we are dealing with a series. All right, so we get a pandas series. All right, we can actually do the same thing with polar. So again, this is what our polars data frame looks like. We have column labels. If I wanted to grab that ship mode column, right, we can do that. And in this case, it actually looks really similar. So if I just comment that out, all right, so, when I'm looking at this polars data frame, it looks like, okay, we never have index labels, but we've always got column labels. And we've got some indication of the shape. Well, if I just look at that ship mode column, well, we've got the shape. It seems to be a single dimensional vector, right? So it's 2,121 entries. Just it's a vector. Versus when I did that data frame, we got both row and column size. All right. And when we're seeing this type of a shape right here come back, right? So it's a single dimensional vector. That's when we can kind of know that we are dealing with a different type in polars. Right, and in fact, this is a polars series. All right. Another thing that we can do, so polars, and I will use this a good bit. Polars has a method. So right now, let me just do this very, very slowly. If I look at the cells data PL, if I do the type, all right, so that's the data frame. All right. And data frame, so cells data PL, if I do a .tab, I can access the methods. One of the methods it has is it's got get column, all right, and I can give it that ship mode name, All right, notice here that we're getting that back. Again, it's a vector, so it's got 2,121 entries, and then it has essentially, that's the only dimension that's provided. So in fact, this should be a polar series as well. Okay, let's just test one additional thing. So if I do that get column, all right, so notice get column takes a single name, right? And they've got their type hint saying, hey, that you're going to, if you do get column, you provide the name of the column and it's going to return a series. Notice that Polars also has a get columns. All right, so this is going to be a little bit interesting, just kind of, keep that in mind. So, you get the data frame as a list of series, right? So what it will actually do, if you get the columns, it's going to give you back a list. So let's say that we said, let's see, let me figure out what some of those columns were. So let's get back ship date and ship mode, right? So that should be fine. So we can go ship date and ship mode. Let's see. Get columns takes one positional argument, but two were given. Let's take a look at that doc string there. All right, so get the data frame as so apparently this takes no arguments. All right, so if you have get columns, what you do, you don't provide any arguments, and what it does is it gives you back each one of the columns in a list. So notice that you've got a list of series, right? So again, I'm kind of purposefully going through this without any guidance. I have no additional notes or notebooks up, and that's purposeful because I want to kind of bump into some of these errors and then show you what I'm looking at, hopefully to help you understand a little bit of like when we do get errors, how's he troubleshooting that? So get columns now, it's a list. That first one is the first element or index position 0 corresponds to the first column. And then we can get them all back. But these are all series because we've got that single dimensional vector. All right, so that is the core objects. We have data frames, we have series in both pandas and polars, where data frames are usually, multi-dimensional, right? So we have, usually, two-dimensional, I should say, because most of the time we're working with tabular data in both of these libraries. And series are going to be single dimensional.